As you know, thousands are now streaming into St. Peter's Square, Vatican City. That is a live shot. As you know, Pope Emeritus Benedict is lying in state at the Vatican because he passed over the weekend.
And they're expecting, it's 3 days of mourning there where people will be gathering, coming millions to pay their respects and honor him, the faithful from all over the world. So let's talk a little bit about his legacy.
Okay, look who's here. Archbishop Nelson Perez joins us now. Nice to have you here.
Great to be here, Mike.
Sorry, it's about this particular topic, but so the funeral will be Thursday.
Thursday, yes.
Right. Did you ever meet him?
I actually did. When I was made a bishop in 2012, all the bishops that year that are named new bishops go to Rome.
Right.
And one of the days, you meet with Pope Benedict. It was a wonderful experience. He has really kind eyes. You know, you could know a person by their eyes.
Right.
Very kind guy, very gentle. Actually, a very gentle guy. And so it was an exhilarating experience.
What is his legacy, though?
His legacy, I think, I'm going to say that his legacy are two. He did everything in the church, you know. He was a pastor, he was a bishop of a diocese, he was in the head of the College of Cardinals, he was the Pope, but he was an eminent theologian. Some call him the St. Thomas Aquinas of the 21st century.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy was a brilliant, brilliant theologian, but a very simple, actually, guy, a very simple man, a man of deep, deep faith. He used to walk in his black cassock right through St. Peter's Square, and people would come to him and they would take pictures because they recognized them.
Karen, you covered him, right?
I did cover him. I remember certainly the reaction when he came here to this country and was in New York, and you know, make visits all around. But it was, you know, and millions of people would come, and it was so significant because we hadn't had people visit in quite some time.
Right.
He, as a person who was, I think the people, you know, they used to call him as a very sort of strict person when it comes to doctrine and philosophy, but then eased some things very interestingly as well. I think that they expected, well, what do you think about how his legacy and then him then stepping aside?
I think, first of all, the legacy of the humility, right? The humility of knowing, you know, the tradition of the church, 600 years had gone by, but he realized that because of his own physical frailty, that he couldn't be for the church and the world what the church and the world needed at the time. And he courageously and humbly stepped away. I think that was heroic.
It was more about health, you think, than the controversy over the sex abuse scandal?
Absolutely.
And the way he handled it?
I am sure that the controversy, that evil part, criminal part of, dark part of the church that we all had to deal with, weighed heavy in his heart. But I don't believe that that was the cause. I believe that at the end he says, I'm not physically able to serve the way the world and the church needs me to serve. And he made a very humble and heroic act and stepped away.
Because normally popes will stay in being the Pope until they die
as a Pope.
So, but he retired.
And he spent the rest of his retired life serving the church in prayer.
Have people come back to the church after this dark part?
I would say so. You know, the more faithful people continue to be heard, of course. But I have to honestly say, and I say this from my heart, I don't think there's any institution in the world, because this is not just an issue, the sexual abuse issue was not just an issue of the church, but the church embraced this really dark moment where some of our own did horrible things and began to address it and deal with it and pay the consequences for it humbly. And Pope Benedict began that process, actually.
So, talking about that, all the pomp and circumstance will still be the same for him?
Well, it won't be, from what I understand, the Vatican has said that it will be simple and somber. Simple and somber, right? Simple and somber, and that, and he would be given a burial mass like you and I would get, you know, but of a retired bishop.
Do you think heads of state will go?
I don't know about that. Normally they would in a sitting pope, because the sitting pope is a head of state, right? I don't know. I'm sure some will show up.
Sure, absolutely.
They'll make some announcements
out of great respect, you know,
so.
Because he's very respected in the world.
How do you like your time in Philly?
I love being home.
Yeah.
You know, Philly was my
Feels
home.
good, doesn't it?
It feels awesome.
Yeah. Have a good New Year.
Thank you so much,
And come
Mike.
back more often.
I will.
right.
Thank you, Karen.
Please.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
All right.